everyone, it's I, Wacky Anime What If here. I hope you guys enjoy. This is part 4 of What If Deku had a Monster Creation Quirk. And before you say, I'm going to do a redo on the previous ones that had a low mic audio, but that's going to be later on, after I complete the series. And if you guys don't know, I have a gaming channel called Midnight Psycho. I'd be happy if you guys could go visit that real quick. Alright, let's go ahead and get into this. Midoriya has just gotten out of the Yagi household, or is about to. He has his stuff packed, and has already started walking away from Izumi after having a conversation with her. And she's on the ground on her knees begging for Midoriya to stay, just not to leave. Please don't leave me, is what she's saying. And this makes Midoriya very mad. He looks behind him and says, "Leave me? You all left me. I didn't leave you. You all didn't care about me. I was the non-existent person in your family. I was the black sheep. The one that you didn't care for. None of you gave a damn about me, so don't pretend to give one now." And as he left, she was on her knees apologizing the entire time as he walked away. And Toshinori was looking outside, watching this unfold, and so was Izuku's mother, Inko Midoriya, or Inko Yagi, was very, very sad and depressed because they both neglected him. They didn't treat him as a person because he was quirkless. It's still their son, but they realized that way too late. And Midoriya was not going to go back now. He walked away with his briefcase. His briefcase is full of his stuff, and had all the money in his pocket. He had on him was only about $5,000, which he saved up throughout his entire life up until now, which is quite a lot for, well, a teenager. He ends up looking around trying to find a place, but he could only find one cheap place. It's near a secluded bar. He figured might as well because it was pretty cheap and it looked really nice. And it was basically a penthouse, and it had 5 rooms, but it was very cheap for some reason. Mainly because it was in a bad neighborhood, apparently, but he couldn't afford to be... He really could not afford to be that picky. Unless he wanted to spend days on the street instead. Where he could get all of his things stolen, or he could get mugged. Or, worse off, he could see his father again and him look down at him, saying, "I knew you couldn't make it on your own, because you're worthless." Or seeing Bakugo walk across him would be the most terrifying thing. Because he'd say, "Oh, you're homeless? Oh, that makes perfect sense, Deku. Your family probably got tired of you and just abandoned you." When it would be the opposite way around. But he didn't want to hear any of this. So the fact that this was far away from their household was pretty good. It was decent ways. So he made contact with the owner over the phone, and he said there are other people living in the apartment with him, in separate rooms. You all share the same house though, well, the same penthouse, but different rooms, which he's perfectly fine with. So he accepted the terms and conditions, which one of them was not to freak out from any of the, well, quirks they have, or not to really say anything about a person that's made of smoke, because he was ostracized because of that, is what the owner says. And he didn't really mind it because quirk discrimination exists everywhere. As Midoriya walked into the penthouse, you notice that there's a lot of decorations there. There's a chandelier in the living room. The living room's about as big as his room, his living room, and his kitchen combined. which was quite impressive. And he notices a large TV too, which he very much liked. He started to go up to where he assumed his room was, which was up the stairs to the right. At least that's what the owner said. But once he opened his door, he saw that there was this person made of mist, completely black mist, with a metal cylinder thing on his neck. And Midoriya immediately says, "Oh, sorry, wrong room." And the man merely says, "Oh, I'm sorry about that. The owner probably gave you the wrong room by accident. Your room's right beside mine. And I hope you have a pleasurable stay. And I hope we can get along handsomely." As he says this, and Midoriya notices that he's in a suit. Well, a bartender suit. And he asks, "So, are you a bartender?" And the polite man, made of mist, merely says, "Yes, I'm a bartender. I work at the bar quite nearby." And Midoriya is just like, "Oh, you mean the one that's like right next to us almost?" That's quite an odd place to put a bar, to be honest. It's in an alleyway. It's kind of shady. But hey, location. It's kind of hard to pick a location, really, for business nowadays, with heroes wrecking everything. So it's probably safer in an alleyway, because less fights happen there. Because majority of businesses get ruined because heroes end up getting punched straight through buildings, or they punch villains through there and destroy everything without paying, or having any consequence of doing so. While Kurogiri's pretty impressed that he actually managed to piece together that. Because most people, when they think about failing businesses, they think that it was just because their actual marketing was wrong, or that they merely were just really bad at business. But the main reason why businesses nowadays are failing is because heroes keep on flashing all around and throwing villains into them and causing too much property damage for them to sustain their business. Which Kurogiri is pretty impressed by him. And he merely asks, "So, what are you exactly? Where do you work?" And Midoriya says, "Oh no, I'm in high school. I'm applying to UA. I've actually recently developed my quirk. I recently awakened my quirk. I'm a late bloomer, apparently. And I don't know what it really does. I'm trying to figure out how to activate it again." And Kurogiri merely looks at him and says, "Are you sure that it's actually a quirk? Or are you sure that you have a quirk? If what I'm saying is true, you were quirkless before. Some people who are quirkless and hope for their desires as much as they won't really awaken a quirk, they'll just imagine they did. Are you sure it's not that?" And Midoriya immediately says, "Yeah, I'm perfectly sure. I heard about that too. I thought it was that at first until, recently." And Kurogiri merely nods and says, "I hope we get to hang out later on. Also, could you not say anything about our other roommates? One of them has scars all around." And Midoriya merely says, "He has scars? Could you tell me in detail where they are?" And Kurogiri merely says, "My name's Kurogiri, by the way, and they are all around his face mostly, but all around his body too." And Midoriya just says, "Well, I can relate to that, considering I was, outcasted wherever I went because I was quirkless before. So I understand how it feels to be beaten down and bruised and scarred." He says this with his eyes shifting downwards in sadness, and Kurogiri could feel the emotion coming off of him, and started to think, he's not that different from us. Should I tell Master about this? And Midoriya merely says, "Oh, anyway, nice to meet you. I'm gonna go ahead and get some Z's because I gotta go to school tomorrow." "Well, my last day of middle school was a while back. I have a few months for the UA exams, so I'm actually about training, so I gotta get some sleep so I can train tomorrow. And Kirigiri, before Midoriya leaves, says, "What type of training are you going to be doing?" And he says, "Oh, before I do training, I've got to find out what my quirk is exactly. I don't know the specifics, but I think it's a summoner quirk, to be exact. It's summoned something really grotesque, to be exact. But, hey, even if it's grotesque, I could still become a hero with it." He says it with a smile gleaming off of him, and Kirigiri immediately in his head says, Maybe I shouldn't ask Master to recruit him, or tell Master about him yet. At least until his spirit is broken, and we can mend him together. And get him to our cause. Yeah, I think I'll wait, is what he's thinking, while Midoriya left and went to his room and laid down and went to sleep. But in the middle of the night, there was a storm. There was lightning shooting down everywhere, all over the city. It was quite the phenomenon, and lightning struck right beside Midoriya's door, and the light of flash appeared in Midoriya's room, and this grotesque monster, what would assume to be a monster, that was made of completely pitch black ink, a hand rose out of Midoriya's chest, and grabbed onto the bed, right to the sides of the bed, and lifted itself out of Midoriya, crawling out of him, and landed right beside him, off the bed, and with a loud thud, and got up, and started to materialize out of the ink, out of the completely pitch black ink, with blood red and mixed in, that looked like blood, and it started to materialize and looked exactly like Midoriya. It started configuring flesh all around it. It looked like a mirror copy, except it had a suit, a completely pitch black suit with a red handkerchief on the side, and his eyes were completely pitch black, and his hair was all the way down to his back, and the hair covered one of his eyes, his left eye, and he looked at Midoriya for what seemed like a few minutes, and then a flash of light entered the room again, and he was gone. Back at the Yagi residence, Toshinori and Izumi and Inko are talking about what just happened. Inko saying that her baby boy left, Izumi saying that her big brother left us, and All Might just looking downwards, realizing that they've been treating him like garbage ever since they found he was quirkless, and that it's not right, and that we should go ahead and find him. So they left the house, and they started trying to find him. Izumi started going through alleyways, thinking that he didn't have enough money to support himself, or he'd be sleeping on the streets or something, assuming this. And while Inko was looking at apartments, really cheap apartments nearby, and All Might was just looking all around, anywhere he could go. But Izumi managed to find someone in an alleyway. He found this man with a ski mask on his head, and she knew that this guy was not up to any good, and she was about to leave, but was grabbed by her wrist, and there was this weird aura around this man with a ski mask, and he immediately says, "Don't fucking move or I'll gut you." And he had his knife aimed right towards her neck, and Izumi was panicked, and she just yelled out instinctively, Big brother, help!" And the guy with the ski mask immediately says, "Oh, your big brother isn't going to help you, whoever that is. And he wouldn't be a help even if he was here. Because I can cancel quirks. That's my quirk. Meaning you're fucking useless, even if you had a good quirk like Endeavor. All I have to do is cancel it by touching you." And all that happens is he grabs his hand towards Izumi's neck, puts his head right beside her, and sticks out his tongue, about to lick her. But he notices that his tongue fell off right when he left it out of his mouth. And he starts screaming and lets go of her and falls to the ground and starts looking at his tongue that was severed and was in complete agony. His mouth was filling with blood. And he looked right upwards from the building that was right beside them in the alleyway. And he saw someone jump down right in front of him and saw these giant menacing claws lunging at him, ripping him shred to shred. Shreds to shreds of his body parts were flying everywhere, but he was still conscious. His head was attached. He was staring at all the carnage around him, his guts flying out everywhere, his heart still beating, and his bones deteriorated and broken all around, and he was just a bloody mess in the alleyway. While Izumi is looking back at the robber, who's still right behind him, pointed with the knife towards him, and wondering why he stopped. And the robber just merely falls down and is unconscious. And she notices someone walking towards her, footsteps, and thinks that it's an accomplice, and merely puts her hands up, ready to fight him, but looks and sees that it's Midoriya, but something seems different. His aura's different. It's menacing, it's terrifying, and just overall monstrous. And he has very long hair, and his eyes are red, but Izumi doesn't really care about this. She just sees her brother. She runs up towards him and hugs him, buries her head into his chest and screams and says, I'm so sorry, we treated you like that. We did it because you were quirkless. It was the wrong thing to do. I swear if you come back, we'll change everything. We'll make sure that this never happens again. We'll make sure that Bakugo doesn't consistently pester you. We'll make sure that we actually love you. We'll make sure that we're actually a family again, like how we used to be. And she looks up at Midoriya and notices something. This is not Midoriya. The red eyes don't have any hatred, anger, but merely a blank expression with a sadistic smile spreading across the face with sharp razor-like teeth, which terrify her. She was still holding on to him, about to let go, but all that happened was Midoriya hugged her, and she felt at ease for a second, thinking, this is Midoriya, until she felt this hug getting tighter and tighter. She felt her bones breaking and snapping. She felt her spine going straight towards her guts, forward. And she felt agonizing pain and looked upward just to see Midoriya smiling with the razor-sharp teeth and the eyes glowing brighter red. And then she noticed that she was in a dark room now. She swore she was getting crushed by Midoriya, but now she's in a dark room alone, by herself, with no one there. And then she merely sees Midoriya and All Might and Inko walking out and looking at her and saying, "You're worthless. We don't like you. We don't need you. You're nothing. You're just quirkless loser." While Midoriya has her quirk, and everything's completely reversed, and she's screaming. She's in agony from the pain in reality, but mentally she's getting even more pain. She's getting emotionally destroyed by her own family, the family that she thought was her own, and she can't differentiate this from reality. She thinks it's actually happening. She just thinks the pain is just the pain of rejection of her own family, but she is still getting crushed by Midoriya. Midoriya nearly snaps her in complete half until a hero comes, and the completely pitch red flames come firing at him, and Midoriya just disappears and black smoke, as if he was never there in the first place. And the black smoke starts to dissipate and go flying towards one direction, towards Midoriya, who is currently sleeping. The fake Midoriya, or known as the illusionist now, goes straight inside of Midoriya's chest to be awakened another time. The hero that was there was quite disturbed of the state of this female he sees, which he knows is Izumi, considering it's the number one hero's daughter. And, well, he saw her in a state where her back is where her legs are. She's completely bent, and her spine is completely shattered almost. She might not be able to walk again. He takes her to a hospital, and when she wakes up, he's about to question her. When she wakes up a few hours later, but she's in intense pain, and she's scratching her face over and over, and screaming out, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry," over and over, and having blood red tears through her eyes, while she's scratching her face, scratching her eyes out, and scratching at her neck. And they had to sedate her and restrain her. And when they told All Might and Inko about this, they were saddened and they were angry that some villain attacked their daughter and they didn't know what the villain looked like. And this is the end of What If Deku Had a Monster Creation Quirk Part 4. I hope you guys enjoy this part, and until next time, or until a few days later maybe 2 days, you'll see me again.